অর্থনীতির চাকা অনুষ্ঠান থেকে আপনাদের সকলকে শুভ সন্ধ্যা। আমাদের স্টুডিওর ভিতরে যারা আছেন এবং স্টুডিওর বাইরে দূর দূরান্ত থেকে যারা এই অনুষ্ঠান দেখছেন তাদের সবাইকে স্বাগতম। অর্থনীতির চাকা এই অনুষ্ঠানের আজকের আমাদের বিষয় হচ্ছে, আলোচনার বিষয় হচ্ছে সমৃদ্ধির দ্বারপ্রান্তে বাংলাদেশ, অর্থাৎ কিনা বাংলাদেশের সামনে দ্রুত অর্থনৈতিক উন্নয়নের যে সুযোগগুলো আছে সেই সুযোগগুলোকে কাজে লাগিয়ে আমরা কিভাবে একটা মধ্য আয়ের দেশে পৌঁছাতে পারি সেই বিষয়ে আমরা আজকে মূলত আলাপ করব। এবং এই আলাপের জন্য আজকে আমাদের সাথে খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ দুজন ব্যক্তিত্ব উপস্থিত আছেন। প্রথমে আমার পাশেই আছেন প্রফেসর গুস্তাফ পাপানেক, যিনি বস্টন ইনস্টিটিউট অফ ডেভেলপমেন্ট ইকোনমিক্সের প্রেসিডেন্ট। এবং আমাদের সাথে আরও উপস্থিত আছেন আজকে এই অনুষ্ঠানে ডক্টর হোসেন জিল্লুর রহমান, যিনি পাবলিক পলিসি রিসার্চ সেন্টার পিপিআরসির চেয়ারম্যান এবং আমাদের ইমিডিয়েট পাস যে কেয়ারটেকার গভর্নমেন্টের একজন অন্যতম অ্যাডভাইজার ছিলেন। আমাদের যেহেতু আলোচকবৃন্দর মধ্যে মূল আলোচক বাংলা জানেন না, সেই জন্য আমাদের বাকি অনুষ্ঠানটুকু আমরা ইংরেজিতে ধারণ করব। ওয়েলকাম Professor Gustav Papanek. As I was saying that we're going to talk about the growth opportunities for Bangladesh, and you have had a lot of studies in this regard and a lot of reports you have done, a lot of advisory services you have provided to many different policy planners in Bangladesh since the early days of East Pakistan, starting in 1954, when many of us in this room were not even born. So according to you, you basically came here also in connection with the conference on the growth strategy, the strategy for growth conference by Dhaka Chamber, where you were one of the distinguished speakers. So there also you spoke about that, and of course Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman was the keynote speaker there. So what's your view on this growth opportunities awaiting us?
Well, since I have come here first in 1954, the change in Bangladesh has been absolutely tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
The progress has been phenomenal.
Okay.
And it accelerated since the low point was the Great Famine in 74.
Right.
When the situation here was horrible. I happened to be here. It is something that I will never forget.
Mm-hmm.
And that has always meant that I've always wanted to come back and see the change that has taken place. Bangladesh, people here sometimes forget that originally there were 3 or 4 factories. That was all in the country.
Right.
And none of them were owned by Bengalis or operated by Bengalis.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as Bengali management of manufacturing was concerned, it was zero.
That's right.
And now there is a huge garment industry,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially Bengali owned, employs 1 million people.
Mm-hmm.
There is complete coverage of the country virtually by mobile phones.
That's right.
Bangladeshi owned.
Mm-hmm.
There's been growth in rice production.
Mm-hmm.
That has been very great. So the country has made tremendous progress.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, it's not enough.
Not enough.
It still is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not enough for 2 reasons to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
One is that every year 2 million people, 2 million Bangladeshis join the labor force and are looking for work.
Mm-hmm.
And Bangladesh creates less than 1 million jobs for them.
Okay.
Far less than 1 million jobs, which is why people migrate abroad. They don't migrate because they would rather be abroad.
Mm-hmm.
They migrate because they cannot get jobs here.
Mm-hmm.
So for Bangladesh to really develop,
Mm-hmm.
to reach the kind of middle income status
Mm-hmm.
that you aspire to, it's going to have to create something like 3 million jobs not less than 1 million jobs. And to do that, it has to attack on a broad front. I would never choose among these three paths to development. You need them all three.
Okay.
For development to proceed, for Bangladesh to essentially end the miserable poverty that still remains here, and that is horrifying and morally unacceptable, it is going to need to grow at 9% a year, which Bangladesh, of course, has never achieved, and which only two countries have recently achieved in Asia, China and India. And India, very peculiar circumstances for that. So that's a huge job, and you need to increase the income from migrants. You need to increase the income from transit and supplying services to the neighboring areas, and not just to India, but to China, to Southeast Asia, to Myanmar or Burma. But above all, neither of these are going to employ anywhere near 3 million people. The only way Bangladesh can employ 3 million people is by the rapid growth of manufacturing industry. And not just garments. That's not possible, and it's dangerous. So it will have to be broad-based growth, and that's entirely possible because China is no longer competitive in the world market for these goods that employ lots of people. And that's not just garments, it's textiles, it's shoes, it's furniture, it's electrical, electronic goods, it's car parts, it's toys, it's kitchenware, and so on and so forth. The Chinese dominate that market. They are now going to go down. Bangladesh can take over part of it. But one last point on this. Bangladesh is not the only country planning to take over the Chinese market. Indonesia, India, both countries where I've been this last 2 months, they're also planning to take over the market. And they think they're better placed than Bangladesh. And they're going to take over the market. And if Bangladesh thinks it can take over the market without making some major changes, it's mistaken. So that's my long answer to a short question.
Now, thank you. Thank you, Professor Papanek. So I will come to Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman for a very short intro on your take on these three growth opportunities. Then we'll take a commercial break, and then we'll come back to you for further comments. So your brief take on this.
Brief take is 4 points. Yes. One is that we are growing established. Challenge today is accelerating that growth process. That's what he said. We are growing at 5%. It's a unique record in the world that last 20 years there has not been a single year of negative growth. Steady improvement, 5%. But now we need acceleration up to 8-9%. That's point one. Point two is that China business is an important growth opportunity. But I would also simultaneously argue that one of the challenge for Bangladesh is to diversify its economy. We were focused on rice earlier year, then on RMG. We must not get hooked only on one opportunity. As Professor Papanek also mentioned, it's a broad front on which you have to work. So we have to. Two more points. One is that this growth triangle that you mentioned. There's India, there's China, there's ASEAN. We are sitting in the middle of three growth triangles. But the opportunity will benefit us if we can strategize on what are our advantages in this. It has to be a win-win situation. And the last point is China developed by a particular model which was focused on exports. Bangladesh has developed on a model which is, we have worked on two legs. We are focused on export, RMG, but we have also focused on a domestic economy. And with 150 million people, the domestic market is also an important driver.
Okay.
That's my focus.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll take a quick break, a commercial break. Welcome back to Orthonitir Chaka. We were discussing with Professor Papanek and Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman about the tremendous growth opportunities that are right at the door of Bangladesh. We talked about the opportunity of low-end manufacturing industries migrating from China. We talked about the growth opportunity from being in the middle of 3 huge growth centers in India, China, and Southeast Asia, which we can take advantage through providing deep sea port facilities, transit facilities, and other such facilitation to these 3 growth centers. And the third opportunity was our migrant workers, skilling them upwards and also increasing the quantity. Now I'll go back to Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman. You said that for the last 20 years we have been steadily growing at about 5-6%, but we need to push that up to 8% or more if we really want to attain that status of middle income country by 2021. So what should we do to do that?
Well, I think some of the ideas have been already articulated by Professor Papanek and myself. And I think on the middle income issue, because it's grabbed the popular imagination, everyone wants talking about we want to become a middle income country. It's important to make the point that middle income can be a very broad range.
Right.
You have low middle income countries in which still poverty is a major problem.
In fact, according to the World Bank, the definition for middle income country starts from $996 per capita to about $12,000.
There's a huge
So
range.
it's a huge range, and middle income is not just a statistical ambition. Middle income is a much more broader ambition. It's about transforming our economy, of transforming ourselves as new economic agents. So that is the important point, that we are not going for low middle income country. We want middle or high middle income country. And how do you go there? How do you accelerate? The opportunities, first one should mention, the opportunities have been mentioned. I think we need to build on the drivers which are already working. For example, RMG is working, and the diverted business from China is already happening, but it's on just the beginning. Whether we can capture it, that's where we have to strategize. So we have to build on our existing drivers. Remittance, by the way, is now, there's a question mark, because remittance is still high in terms of the inflow, but the out-migration of workers have dramatically fallen. In fact, it has come down 1/3 already by two. The highest was in 2008. It was nearly 1 million. It has now come down to, this year it's about 346,000.
But we are hearing that it is going to increase again, but certain countries are looking at hiring more people from Bangladesh.
But, one has to see that, because the reason it's a structural issue now, because the global market for unskilled labor is shrinking. So the challenge, as you have mentioned, we have to focus on skills. It's still a possibility. Remittances will be a possibility, but only if we address the skill issue. So that's one, that we are building on our existing drivers. And I think I would perhaps add a little with Professor Papanek in the future growth acceleration that we're looking at. Manufacturing employment is certainly very important, but I think one less known driver of growth in Bangladesh has been the service sector. A lot of growth in the service sector linked to manufacturing also. Finance, telecommunications we mentioned, real estate, construction, transportation, major development there. So service, in the reality of our natural resource endowment, etc., service will be a very important driver. And where has the service come from? It has primarily been from the domestic economy side. We have a large domestic market, and I think there are important book titles in the world, like the billions at the bottom of the pyramid. The poor are poor, but they have the strength of numbers. They may have, say, $100 in their pocket, but if you add 100 into 1 million or 100 million, then it becomes a large market. So that's another driver that we have to look at. One point which is missed out is that agriculture, in our this vision of this new country that we are looking at, the growth country, that agriculture is a backward sector. This is wrong. This perception is wrong. yes, it is backward if we just focus on, with those cows we are tilling just to produce a little bit of rice. If you think of agriculture in that way, it's a backward sector.
But you're saying that more mechanized
not just
cultivation.
mechanized. There are the growth sector, dairy, fisheries. Vietnam, the lesser known story of the Vietnam story is that from almost zero, they are now exporting over 4 billion just in fish. In the last a decade or so.
I see.
So fish, dairy, livestock, horticulture is also, so we have to what I call reposition agriculture for growth.
For growth.
So that's a very important. And then we have of course the the regional connectivity issues. These are very important. We can look into that. So there are the opportunities are there. But there are also risks, but we can come to that later.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now I'll come to you, Professor Papanek, on this. That he talked about the skills development. He also talked about the infrastructure development in connection with the taking advantage of the regional economy. But according to you, because you are an educationist yourself, how important a role will education, overall our education infrastructure play in this overall growth strategy of Bangladesh? In fact, one other thing that I would like to add to that, in fact, in Dr. Hossein Zillur Rahman's keynote in the recently concluded conference, where we shared the vision for 2030, we saw that there is a tremendous emphasis on manufacturing industries, and for that again, skilled workforce and educated workforce is a given. It has to be there, right? Yes, please.
Yes. I have to disagree on some things that are kind of popular here at the moment.
Okay.
One is the notion that you can grow with a heavy emphasis on remittances. Why do remittances grow? Because Bangladeshis don't have any good opportunities here.
At home.
They don't, most of them really don't want to go abroad.
Right.
So if you're going to be a middle income country, remittances will decline because more people will stay here.
Home. Right.
Okay. Second idea, we can grow on the basis of the domestic market.
Okay.
If you could do that, every country could grow rapidly because you can always increase the domestic market by printing more money. Yes, you have a large domestic market, but it cannot be the leading sector. Because if the domestic market expands, always some of the demand will spill over into imports.
Right.
You don't produce everything here, and you never will. No country does.
Right.
Every country imports something. So if the economy grows rapidly based on the domestic market, imports will grow, and somehow you have to pay for it. So you have to expand exports. Third, the domestic market is large, but it's already saturated for many goods and services. For instance, if agriculture grows more rapidly and goes into some specialized production, including production for exports, it will not absorb many more workers from outside agriculture because it already has too many workers. A growing economy, a developing economy, actually the number of agricultural workers goes down. Here,
and also there is this problem of underemployment in the agriculture sector.
Exactly. Here they're still gone up. It's low productivity. There are too many people in agriculture. Agriculture can grow. If fisheries grows, if livestock grows, orchids, flowers can be exported.
That's right.
It'll absorb more people, but it won't absorb people from outside the agriculture sector. It'll absorb people from inside. You cannot get around. If you're going to employ 3 million people, the only way, I'm sorry, in my view, you can employ them is by rapid growth of manufactured exports. Okay?
All right.
And one last point, Bangladesh has the lowest cost labor in Asia.
That's right.
And it has the only large pool of low-cost labor in the world.
Okay.
It's unique in that respect.
Right.
And why is it low cost? Because people are poor.
Poor, right?
So you want to put these people to work.
Okay.
Many of them are now in casual sector employment where there are too many people.
Okay.
You want to put them to work. The only way to do that is by rapidly increasing manufactured exports.
Okay.
So, and that's a hard thing to do, and you're not there yet.
Okay. Now, thank you, Professor Papanek, for your take on this. That we definitely need to look at exports as a growth driver for our economy. Of course, the local market is important, but driving the growth will require expanding our export basket much more rapidly, much more aggressively. At this point, we'll take some questions from the audience. So, can we have the first question, please?
Good morning, sir. My question to you is, what should Bangladesh do to develop the infrastructure necessary to take the advantage of the opportunities afforded by the growth triangle?
Okay. So, you talked about the growth triangle, but what kind of infrastructure development should take place to really take advantage of that? Do you want to go first on that? Yeah.
No, please.
Okay.
Well, I think the infrastructure needs are at several levels. One is mega projects level, Podda Bridge, Deep Sea Port, Chittagong, Dhaka-Chittagong Expressway. So that's one type of infrastructure needs we have to address. The other type of infrastructure need is the broad transport networks. And the third is very importantly the secondary towns, the secondary structures. And I think I will respectfully also not disagree, but will join him on this debate that globally now this word rebalancing has come into the global discourse. Okay. What does it mean? It means that it is important not to depend on only one leg while walking. Okay. So certainly export is going to be a driver. Export has been a driver, will be a driver. Important thing is that you do not disadvantage the domestic market by an exclusive focus on export. Domestic market, for example, I'll give you one example of how the dynamics work. Rahim Afroz is a local company. It is today exporting batteries to the world. Where did this battery get born as an exportable item? It got born in the domestic market, and there are many other items emerging which get born here. So tomorrow's exporters are being born in today's domestic market. So domestic market, export market, both have to be prioritized in that sense.
All right, thank you. Professor Papanek, on this question of...
You know, Bangladesh is in a wonderful position. I mean, nobody can compete with you in that respect. It's the one thing where you don't compete with anybody.
Right.
You know, if you have this wonderful location where it is cheaper, faster to export through Chittagong, if you're coming from southern China, if you're coming from eastern India, if you're coming from northern Myanmar.
That's right.
Nobody else can offer that.
That's right.
So all that Bangladesh has to do it doesn't have to be better than anybody else, which it has to be in manufactured exports or cheaper to win. Here, all it has to do is provide a service.
That's right.
Provide the minimal service that's required for it to be competitive. But that's not going to be cheap. And I want to put in an argument here for foreign investment.
That's right. Yeah.
There are things that ought to be done by Bangladeshis. And that can be done by Bangladeshis. But I've talked to domestic investors. $10 billion investment are really difficult in one project for Bangladeshis to do, investors on their own. So And to build a mega port, to build a road from China to Chittagong is going to require some foreign participation. But all these countries who will benefit from this have an interest in investing in this because they're getting something out of it.
Absolutely.
And if it becomes a toll road so that you collect revenue,
That's right.
you can pay them back with no difficulty and make a good profit on top of it. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
It's a win-win
and it's
proposition,
unique, and nobody can take it away from you.
That's right.
You can just take it away from yourself by not developing.
So basically, we can leverage our location. Actually, we are out of time. Sorry, we can't take any more questions. But thank you both of you for a wonderful discussion on the growth opportunities that are right at our door, and for our viewers, this would be very, very beneficial in getting an appreciation for how Bangladesh can leapfrog from its present state of low income status to a middle of the middle income status. I like that, because we don't want to be just a borderline middle income country. But one other item that we didn't get to discuss because of shortage of time is that we want this growth, we want this development also to be very inclusive. We don't want anybody to be left out. And overall, one point you touched upon is poverty alleviation. We still have very large poverty, and we need to bring them out of poverty and make them very much at the center of our growth strategy. So thank you all very much for this discussion. Thank you our audience for participating in this, and we will discuss more on these issues later on, and we'll come back to your presentations on the growth opportunities for Bangladesh. Both of your presentations, in fact, in our future programs as well. Thank you.
Thank you.